This episode is all about Guadalupe Mountains National Park in Texas. Fun facts, what to do, and where to stay. I camped there with my dog Molly for 3 nights in June of 2023 and did some great hikes. So here are my tips for a trip there. Established as a national park in 1972, Guadalupe Mountains is one of the smaller parks at only 86,000 acres. For comparison, Yellowstone is almost 26 times larger. People started inhabiting that area 10,000 years ago, living in the caves while they followed game. Apaches lived there for hundreds of years before pioneers started moving in the late 1800s. Now, I spent 3 nights there in June 2023 when my dog Molly and I did a 2-month RV road trip. We drove all the way across Texas, mostly along I-20, which basically takes like 9 hours, the route that we took, and it feels like 5 days. And we first hopped into New Mexico to see Carlsbad Caverns and then dipped back into that little pointy tail on the west part of Texas. I think it's technically called the Trans-Pecos region. There you'll find a lot of desert, Big Bend National Park, El Paso, and Guadalupe Mountains National Park. One of the only ways to drive in is from Route 62 near Pine Springs, Texas, on the east side of the park. The closest gas station is like 35 miles north in New Mexico, so make sure you gas up and get groceries before entering the park. Soon after you get in, the one road over there will take you to the visitor center, the tent campground, and a parking lot where several trails begin and where the RV campers stay. There's 3 different campgrounds within the park. The park's RV campground is called Pine Springs Campground and has 13 parking spaces for RVs up to 55 foot long. And when I say parking spaces, I mean spaces in a parking lot. It's not a campground by any means. It's just straight up blacktop, which is fine. And you best come prepared. This is dry camping with no hookups. There's no electric stands, no water, no sewer. There is a bathroom for the lot and the trailheads with running water. In fact, on day 2 or 3 of staying there, I washed my hair in the sink because I was tired of feeling gross. And then behind that, there's a dishwashing station. There's also a potable water spigot. Now, I didn't do enough research before my trip. I had no idea there was a bathroom, dishwashing station, and the water spigot. So I was pleasantly surprised and relieved to find those. I had brought several gallons of water for those couple of days. The proper research I did was based around dry camping in the Texas June heat. There are no electric hookups to run your AC. Generator hours are from 8 a.m. to 8 p.m., so at least you can cool off using that if you have one during the day. However, that uses your gas and it's loud, so I did my best to only run it for an hour a few times a day. Something that really came in handy were sunshade reflectors. I think I got them from Lowe's or Home Depot. They're inexpensive and they've come in handy over and over to block out heat or light. It was tough not having any shade during the day, and yet that meant amazing sunsets. I would take my folding chair out to the stretch of grass and watch the sun go down behind the mountains. Like I mentioned, there are several trailheads right there. El Capitan Trail, Guadalupe Peak Trail, Tejas Trail, and the Foothills Trail. If you want to get back to the visitor center, it's about a half mile through the tent campground and down a trail there. I had to hike to the visitor center for cell service to text my family that I was alive. And at the beginning of that trip, my generator wouldn't cut on, and there was no way I was going to be comfortable not having AC for the dog for 3 days with highs in the 90s. So I used cell service there to get onto YouTube and watch a video for how to fix the generator. Now, the Pine Springs Campground also has 20 leveled tent camping sites. Again, there's no electric or water hookups. In fact, while I was walking Molly through that campground, I saw some people with solar panels laying out to run a small fridge and charge their phones. There's also a restroom for that area. The Dog Canyon Campground is very remote on the north side of the park, about a 2-hour drive from the visitor center area. There's 9 tent sites and 4 RV sites, but they have a max length of 25 foot, so measure yours first. Then there's the Frijole Horse Corral Campground near the entrance to the park. It offers corrals, a pit toilet, and trailer parking. All three of these campgrounds can be booked up to 6 months in advance on recreation.gov. On to what to do. My favorite hike that I did there was Devil's Hall. It's a 3.8 mile round trip, and all trails rates it moderate, yet there's parts that were more challenging for sure. The first mile or so is a pretty steady slope in the brush along the top of the canyon. Then you come to the entrance of the rock wash that you follow for a little over half a mile. When I say rock wash, I mean big white boulders that you're at times scrambling over. It was so fun. And yet, with no cell service, I was a little concerned about determining when that wash may end and if I were to rejoin a more proper trail at some point. It ends at the Devil's Hall, which is a narrow slot canyon with steep walls. Here's the problem though. On the way back down, I didn't see where the rock wash part of the trail rejoined with the footpath in the brush. I don't remember there being great signage for that. So I started to get a little nervous because I was out alone. I didn't sign up for All Trails Plus at that point or anything that could give me access to a map without cell service. So eventually, to refine the trail, I climbed up the less steep side of the canyon, half worried about stepping on a rattlesnake, half worried about being lost in the wilderness. And eventually I saw a couple walking and confirmed with them I was on the right trail. I totally broke a leave no trace rule and got off trail, so I'm very sorry. Now, the next day I did a portion of the El Capitan Trail, probably about 4.5 miles worth. It is really hot in Texas in June, if you didn't know, and I didn't want to leave Molly unattended in the RV for too long. So the whole trail is about twice that, 9.1 miles, and it travels along the foothills of the mountain where you can see El Capitan. I also did the Pinery Trail one evening as it was getting cooler. It's flat, only a mile long, and will take you to the historic Stagecoach Station ruins. By the way, this is the only trail in the park where you can bring dogs, so Molly got to come on this one. Now, the most badass trail in the park is the Guadalupe Peak Trail. It is 8 miles long and climbs up almost 3,000 feet to the tallest point in Texas, Guadalupe Peak. The first mile and a half is the toughest, with several switchbacks up the steep slope. In the middle, you'll see some of the only trees in the park since it's much less sunny and a lot cooler right there. Then you have an amazing view of the mountains and the deserts from the top. If you're looking for a moderate hike in between all of these, check out the Smith Spring and Manzanita Spring loop. It begins over by the Frejole Horse Corral campground. It's a 2.5 mile loop that starts paved and changes to a well-maintained trail with a gentle slope. You'll see both springs, which provide a little oasis to the plants and animals there. Now, there's very little shade in this whole park. I mean, you're in the desert, so there's not exactly trees everywhere. I recommend you hike early in the morning or later in the evening when it's cooler and the sun isn't directly above you. Wear sunscreen and the right clothes, like something to cover your face, head, and your neck. And bring plenty of water and snacks. And just a reminder, there's very intermittent cell coverage in the park, and parts have no service at all. So make sure you bring a paper map of the trails or have one already downloaded onto your phone. And make sure that your phone is charged, and even bring an external battery pack. Now, one area I didn't visit and would totally go back to is the Salt Basin Dunes. You access that part of the park from Del City to the west. These are white gypsum sand dunes like in White Sands National Park to the north. They rise about 100 foot up, and there is a 3.3 mile trail that will take you up and over them. There's tons of wildlife that call Guadalupe Mountains National Park home. I didn't see any of the mammals, yet you might see elk, black bear, mountain lion, mule deer, javelinas, coyotes, skunks, bats, and ringtails. I saw several lizards and snakes while hiking. There's also roadrunners, wrens, turkeys, and hummingbirds. Your best bet for seeing wildlife will be closer to the springs areas and during the cooler times of day. By the way, there's 5 species of venomous snakes in the park. Yes, I said venomous, not poisonous. Stop doing that. And just be really mindful of where you're stepping. Stay on trail. And those guys won't be out when it's much, much cooler or when it's super, super hot. And don't forget to hit subscribe so that you can follow along and dream big for your journeys on the Great Escape. See you next time, adventurers.